Episode 83. This week we cover The Battle. The name of the episode is The Battle. This one of the stronger episodes of Season 1, I think. It was another Ferangi episode. They were still trying out the Ferangi to see if that would be the main adversary for the Federation. Ultimately it would not, but they tried it again in this episode. The Enterprise went to meet with a Ferangi ship. They couldn't get them to appear. They contacted them. They waited and waited. While they were waiting, Captain Picard came down with a headache. Didn't feel well. Dr. Crusher was like, that's strange. People don't normally get headaches here in this century. And Picard's like, well, just give me something, won't you? So she does, but she's still a bit concerned. Then the Ferengi finally show up, and you're like, yeah, we got a gift for you. And they're surprised Picard doesn't recognize the daemon of the Ferengi vessel. He's got no idea who these people are. They tell him that he's the hero of Maxima, and Picard's got no idea what that means. They have to explain, hey, you were on a ship called the Stargazer. You defeated a Ferengi vessel. It was the Battle of Maxima. And Picard's like, never heard it referred to as that, but I guess so. And that kind of made the daemon of the Ferengi vessel a bit upset. He thought Picard would know exactly what they meant, and that made him a bit upset. So they're like, we got something for you in a little bit. Picard still having the headache, still not feeling well. It kind of affects him differently scene to scene. Sometimes it makes him distracted, sometimes he simply has a headache, sometimes he's disoriented, but that goes on. And then Wesley Crusher comes running on the bridge when Picard's not there, tells Riker he's going to get a intruder alert, which was not the correct term. Riker's like, how? And Wesley just stands there, doesn't answer him. Picard shows up, he's like, answer him, and he's like, well, I was messing with the sensors earlier and realized there's a Federation ship adrift and it's headed this way. Then all of a sudden the alarms hit, which isn't how red alerts usually work, but it worked this time. And it's the Stargazer, Picard's old ship, and he's like, well, I'll be daggone. And then the Ferengi's like, that's what we were going to give you. And we find out shortly after that, the daemon of the Ferengi vessel has a device, and that's been the cause of Picard's headaches this whole time. Picard ends up going over to the Stargazer, has more issues with the headache, has his belongings, which were abandoned after the battle because the Stargazer took too much damage. They had to abandon ship, which was why it was adrift. Crusher sends him back to the Enterprise, says she'll have his things brought aboard. The other end of the device is in his belongings. That's why he was having the effects of it. Well, there were two pieces of this mind-controlling device that cause the headaches. Now the thing's on the Enterprise, so it intensifies. Crusher can't get to the bottom of it. He doesn't understand it. But eventually Wesley Crusher goes rushing in to sickbay where Troy and Crusher are. And he's like, hey, I was examining things and I saw that the patterns of this signal we're receiving matches the brainwave patterns of Picard. And they're like, how do you know that? And he's like, I just do on Wesley Crusher. And they're like, let's go tell Commander Riker. And he's like, you're welcome, ladies. Huh. And so they figure out something's going wrong with the captain, and it's some sort of device. But Picard just happened to be in the transporter room, and rather than shut down the transporters, rather than have the transporter chief not allow the captain to transport, they just stood there with their mouths open while Picard beams to the Stargazer. The Ferengi daemon beams over, raises the shields, and he cranks up this device, makes Picard hallucinate. He thinks he's fighting the Battle of Maxima all over again with his original Stargazer crew. Eventually, Riker gets through to Captain Picard. The Ferengi somehow beamed off even though the shields were up. They get through to him just in time. Picard phasers the device and snaps out of it. The Ferengis have detained their daemon and said since he was not after any profit on this mission, he was dismissed as the daemon, not in charge anymore. So the Ferengi threat is gone. They're able to beam Picard off the ship despite the fact that the shields were never lowered. They forgot that part apparently. That's pretty much how that ends. Some interesting notes in this one. It's an example of why Denise Crosby left the show. She had like a couple of throwaway lines anyone could have said. She was worried about that. This is a good example of why she was worried. And also, second Ferengi episode, it kind of lessened the threat. They were more like kind of comical in this episode even. Not really a serious threat. They had to have the mind control device to be of any real threat to the Enterprise. You also saw the debut of Wesley Crusher's uniform, where it had the rainbow stripe going across the tunic. He used that the rest of this season. Pretty much episode 83.